SB 41 by Senator Barrow. Members, I need to read in a few of the cards for the last bill. Just everyone in support was Shay Simon in support, Mary Landry in support, John Harmon in support, and Linda Pickett in support of HB 150. And we had someone not in support with Shelley Dupre, not willing to speak. Thank you. SB 41. Good morning, Senator Barrow.
Good morning.
We're going to have Naya read it in. My nails don't work with these buttons.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. This is Senate Bill number 41 by Senator Barrow, relative to child welfare, to provide for review of the State Central Registry for school employees, to provide for reporting recordation on the State Central Registry, to provide for licensure of early learning centers, to provide for child welfare and safety minimum standards for pre-kindergarten programs, to provide for child abuse and neglect determinations, to provide for definitions in the Children's Code, to provide for mandatory reporting training, to provide for procedures for reporting child abuse and neglect, to provide for the responsibility of the Department of Children and Family Services to respond to reports, to provide for investigations of child sexual abuse in a school setting, to provide for liability for damages caused by sexual abuse in a school setting, and to provide for related matters. We have a set of technical amendments with this bill.
Would you read those in?
Yes, thank you. This is amendment set number 3900 as identified in the top right-hand corner. It has been posted online and should be distributed to the members. There are 22 amendments in the set, and as stated, the amendments are technical.
Is there any objections to adopting the technical amendments? I hear none. Amendments adopted. Senator Barrow, on your bill.
Thank you. And Madam Vice Chair, I'm going to ask if I can invite up, I can always still refer to her as Judge Ritchie and her phenomenal team. And then we have some other individuals, a great family that I would like to at some point come up and also share their testimony. But Senate Bill 41 started as a result of Senate Resolution 167 in 2024. And that actually happened as a conversation I was having with Judge Ritchie. As you all know, who's our ombudsman. And I asked her, why was it so difficult to really prosecute, Lord have mercy. That's actually what was happening in some cases with our children, unfortunately. Prosecute some cases as it related to child sexual abuse. And so she told me that it was a multi-layered situation, because what we found out was oftentimes, depending on the case, when the investigator showed up, we weren't sure who was actually picking up the case, if it was DCFS or law enforcement. And because there was no true directive, depending on the case, sometimes we didn't know who actually picked up the case. That's one of the things that we did find out in our study resolution, depending, and therefore it caused a loophole, because there were some cases that it was unsure if law enforcement actually followed up on the case or if DCFS followed up on the case, because they assumed that law enforcement had actually taken the lead. So this bill attempted to do a couple of things, and so that was one of the issues that we addressed. Also, the terminology as it related to how a case was actually deemed. So it's my understanding that oftentimes, because of some of the wording, that the case could be presumed as being dismissive, and then making the individual who brought this situation to light seem discredit. So as it relates to whether or not it was deemed a case of, I'm trying to find the word here. Give me just a second. I have too many papers here.
No
Too many
problem.
notes.
We're here all day.
And I definitely don't want to take all day. But that was one of the things that came up. And so we changed that word from substantiate to substantiated, as opposed to Okay. So I'm going to find it in just a second, and I will pick back up there. Yeah, invalid. And so if a case was deemed invalid, then it made it seem as if the information that was brought forth was not truthful. And that was not necessarily the case. It was just a matter of whether or not there was enough proof. So we changed it to substantiated. And thank you so much for that, because I was having a little meltdown up here. Also, we dealt with early learning centers. And this actually came as a result of, while we were doing our resolution, we found out about this particular case where, unfortunately, that we had a gap in licensing. So there is a group, and it's 234 non-public facilities that are currently unlicensed for children under the age of 5, that 2 to 3, 4-year-old. They were unlicensed, and what we found out is that a child was assaulted by another child. And because they were so young, the family, and they would share their story with you, could get no resolve in that entire matter until they were able to come to us. And so now what we are going to do is address that in the law, where all facilities will now have licensing. And we did not know that that was occurring. Also, as it relates to the State Central Registry, prior to this, there's a criminal background check for everyone, and DCFS will keep that registry, but that was not consistent across the board in terms of how that registry was being kept and monitored, and so we have brought further clarity to that, which the department has agreed to do. And then, again, mandatory reporting training. That was another situation where all facilities are required to have the training, but there was no way to verify that that was actually happening. And so we have now put that into statute that, there has to be a reporting system. They're going to report back to us, and we will know that everybody have received this training. And then lastly, the other big component of this, and again, this family will testify to this, when they went through this situation with their daughter, they could not even get back the basic things that their daughter had at the school in terms of being able to retrieve property, and then liability damages, which we have been working with everyone along this process. Initially, I wanted there to be a reimbursement to those individuals who have to go through that, because they had to take their daughter out the facility, and I don't want to get into their testimony, and had to make all these changes, and they could not get any of their payment back for the schooling of their daughter. So this bill takes on a lot of different complexities, a lot of issues that we must address as it relates to the welfare and the well-being of our children. And I have committed to continue to work through concerns, because there have been a set of concerns that have been brought to my attention by early childhood centers. And so there is an amendment, another amendment, I believe, to address some of their concerns. And it may not address it in the way they want it to be addressed, but certainly I think it's really important that we begin to eat this elephant one bite at a time. And it may not be everything that they wanted, but this is what gives me more comfort. And we will continue to work on this bill, working through the process, even after this legislation passed, hopefully, to address any other concerns that may come up, because I know that there are some people that this may have given a little heartburn to, but I feel very strongly that we must do everything humanly possible to protect our youngest, who oftentimes cannot really articulate what has happened or transpired with them. So,
Senator Barrow, do you want me to offer up those amendments?
yes.
Okay. Ms. Bryant, read those in, please.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. This is Amendment Set 3926, as identified in the top right-hand corner. It's been posted online and distributed to the members, and there are 11 amendments in this set. Amendment 1 restores the provisions of present law to allow people with certain convictions to receive teaching credentials or authorizations, excluding those for offenses listed in RS 15587.1C. Amendment 2 provides the calculation for child-to-staff ratios for mixed age groups of children. Amendment 3 requires the State Department of Education to develop an informational document and a provides what shall be included in that document. Amendment 4 changes 72 hours to 3 business days. Amendment 5 removes school resource officer from the definition of teaching or child care provider. Amendment 6 removes the effective upon governor's signature provision. Amendments 7 through 10 are technical amendments. Amendment 11 provides that this act shall be known and may be cited as Charlie's Law, and that concludes this amendment set.
Members, do we have any questions on the amendments? No questions. I see amendment adopted. Yeah. I move to adopt the amendments. Any objections? No objections. Amendments adopted. Back on the bill. Senator Barrow.
Yes, and so thank you very much for that clarification with the amendments. And I would just add that in light of everything that we've learned and heard, we did name this bill after the young lady who went through this situation, which I think helped us to really bridge all the openings or close the gaps that we had with early childhood learning centers and ensuring that our children, at the end of the day, do have a better voice. And so it's going to be called Charlie's Law. And I just felt like I needed to say that as it relates to the set of amendments.
Very good. And we have a question by Representative Barrow.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. And it might be better to hear testimony first. I'm not sure when the appropriate time for the question is. I'm looking through here, and it says that people are prohibited from working if they are on the DCFS registry. And I'm not sure that I'm asking it correctly, but is this, how do people get on the registry, I guess is the question. And is this just people who are accused of something, or if that's been substantiated? I guess I want to make sure we're not excluding people who have just had an accusation, but were not actually found to have done anything wrong.
I can answer
Okay,
that.
good.
The only people listed on the registry,
I'm sorry, could you state your name, please, and who you're with?
Kathleen Stewart Ritchie, I'm with the Child Ombudsman, with the Legislative Auditor. The only people listed on the registry are those who have, after an investigation, had a substantiated report of child abuse or neglect.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. This is really important. I probably will have more questions after testimony and other people talking, but thank you, Madam Vice Chair, for now.
Thank you.
Ms. Kathleen, I'm going to need you to fill out a card, too, a white card, too. Thank you so much.
And I will add that if you receive notification that a report has been substantiated, you do have the opportunity to appeal.
Yeah.
So the appeals go through the Division of Administrative Law to ensure that an individual's rights have been afforded. So there's a process. You don't just get listed as a child abuser without having any knowledge or ability to challenge it.
I assumed that would be the case, but thank you for clarifying.
Yes.
That's all. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Representative Barrow. And you have someone else that needs to speak at the table?
Yes, this is Ms. Michelle.
Yes, hi, I'm the Deputy Director for the Louisiana Child's Ombudsman's Office. I'm just here to help answer any questions.
Ms. Shelton is actually our designee on the task force, so she's been involved with all of these discussions in a more robust manner.
Thank you, Senator Barrow. So we do have some cards of people who are willing to speak. Jana Parrett, you can come to the table.
Oh, okay.
And we also have a Roger Williams that's wanting to speak.
Yes. Do y'all want to sit by each other? I can sit on the end.
And we have a Tom Costanza. So when they get through speaking, you guys can come up. Thank you. And we have a question also by Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not a question, just at the appropriate time. I want to ask people to be favorable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Fisher. Back on the bill.
All right. Good morning, esteemed members of the committee. Thank you for allowing us to come and speak today. Our testimony is rather lengthy, but we feel as though you need to hear our entire story and our experience to understand why this 36-page bill has come before you today. My name is Major Roger Williams. I'm an active duty member of the Louisiana Army National Guard. This is my wife right here, Dr. Jana Padret. She's a nurse anesthesiologist at a large teaching facility in New Orleans. She has a doctorate of nursing practice. Together, we have two amazing little girls, which are our absolute world. Today, however, I'm not here as a soldier. I'm here as a father, an anguished father who's been fighting for change for the last 15 months. On behalf of my now 4.5-year-old daughter. On a day I'll never forget, I picked my daughter up from school and I took her straight to gymnastics, our normal Monday afternoon routine. When I helped her change into her leotard, I discovered a significant amount of blood in her underwear. Alarmed, I sent a picture to my wife, who confirmed that this wasn't normal. Her response was immediate and clear. Something happened. We gently asked our daughter what had happened, and she told us a boy in her class had hurt her by touching her in the vagina. She also mentioned an assistant teacher witnessed the incident and told the boy to stop touching her privates. No further action was taken. Devastated, we immediately sought medical help at Children's Hospital in New Orleans. Sitting there, trying to explain to my daughter that she had done nothing wrong was one of the most heartbreaking moments of my life. In the weeks that followed, my mental health would be equivalent to, if not worse, than my combat deployment to Iraq.
So I left work and I immediately met with my family and I tried keeping my brave face. And I told my daughter that no bobos would happen. We're just going to go to the hospital, show the doctor a bobo from school, and we would be on our way. So as we were sitting there waiting for her exam, I collected tongue depressors and gauze and tape, and we made a forky like Toy Story. I don't know if your kids or grandkids have ever enjoyed Toy Story, but we made this toy, and she would cling to this as a comfort toy for the next 2 weeks. So anyways, just imagine assisting in forensic photos of your child's privates. It is probably one of the most soul-crushing things you can do as a parent, right? So anyways, I was sitting there pretending everything's fine, keeping my face, but inside I'm screaming, wondering, how did I fail my child? So I thought I did everything right. I took forensics class when I attended LSU HSC in New Orleans in undergrad nursing, and I did the Darkness to Light program, which teaches you how to safeguard your child. So I thought I did all the right things. I am a borderline helicopter parent, and somehow my child was still sexually assaulted. So anyways, I had gone to the Audrey Hepburn Center, which is the Child Advocacy Center in New Orleans. For those that do not know what a Child Advocacy Center is, that is a facility that has specially trained healthcare providers in assessing children after abuse, whether it's physical, sexual. And anyways, they are specially trained on how to discuss these difficult topics with kids. So, I went there for clinical, but never did I think I would go back as a parent because I thought I did all the right things. So anyways, how we feel the system failed us. Okay, so as consumers now, we can tell you how there was a systematic failure that we have experienced firsthand. So after my child's assault, we turned to these very systems designed to protect our children, but we found them fragmented, apathetic, and entirely inadequate. So first, we contacted the school, and after we contacted the school, we contacted Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Department, so JPSO. Initially, they refused to investigate. So they said this was a matter for DCFS, the Department of Children and Family Services, and the school. They said that there was no criminal component since the child was less than 10 years old. So since there is no criminality, since the child is a juvenile and there is no bad guy, they were not going to investigate. So DCFS, they declared it was a law enforcement issue. So since it did not occur within a home, it was not for DCFS either, okay? So we got turned back to JPSO. So we went back to JPSO, and they resist involvement still, citing that the children's ages is a barrier to investigation. So since no one could be charged legally for a crime, they wouldn't do anything. My husband called multiple times and asked to be assigned to an SVU detective. It didn't happen. So eventually, weeks later, they assigned us to a school resource officer. But this took about 2 to 3 weeks after my child's sexual assault at school. So this is critical time where accountability and evidence is lost. So a week after her sexual assault, we went to the Child Advocacy Center for a second assessment. And we had called JPSO and asked for a detective to be present. Nobody showed up. So we sat there at a Child Advocacy Center with no law enforcement present. And the reason why this is an issue is, let's say 2-3 weeks later, they want to get involved and they want to interview your child. But at this point, research shows that you want to limit the amount of times that you interview a child because you don't want any long-lasting implications to come from this, right? So, a week after my child shut down, she's not doing well. But 3 to 4 weeks later, we're finally starting to get out of it and do better. And do I really want to pull her out to keep getting interviewed repeatedly when they should have been there a week following? And I don't know if anybody's had the joy of asking a 3 or 4-year-old what they asked or what they ate, 2 days ago, a week ago, right? Very simple details they cannot recall for you. So how do you ask them about what happened 3-4 weeks later and get a meaningful response from your child? So anyways, that's a huge detriment to everything. Anyways, fast forward to the next step of how we were failed. So
Ms. Jana, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We are on a 3-minute rule today, and I don't think you're going to get any opposition to this bill. Do you hope that this is going to address your issues in this bill that Senator Barrow brought today?
There's so many different levels where we were failed, and for a 36-page bill, to understand the reason why it's 36 pages is because there's so many different levels of failures, right? The school failed us, DCFS failed us, law enforcement failed us, right? And then just time frame. And then the school additionally did nothing, and they fall outside of any meaningful regulation. How is that okay?
It's not okay. And we definitely support you. We have a question. Representative Eccles, is it for?
Well, all 3 panelists.
Okay.
Senator Barrow, or I guess you're in Jefferson Parish?
We are, yes, sir.
Are there no child advocacy centers there?
There is the Audrey Hepburn Center that's out of New Orleans. I think they're kind of combined because it's a metro area.
And then are there referral protocols for that center? Maybe Senator Barrow, you would know, or do y'all know?
What do you mean the referral protocol? So there's supposed to be law enforcement there. I don't know how we were able to conduct the forensic interview without law enforcement there, but prior to attending the interview, we did request that they show up, and they didn't.
So the CAC didn't have everybody in the room at the same time?
Correct. I don't know what the requirements are to say if that's an appropriate statement. I'm not sure.
Typically, they have a behavioral health therapist in the room. They go through a series of questions. They have protocols that they've designed. They record that so they can then share it with the sheriff and other vendors. So that's the normal process for those.
Right.
I only know this because we built one in North Louisiana almost 20 years ago, and it was to solve the problems that you guys have, going to multiple agencies, multiple interviews, putting the kids through traumatic experiences, by having to do this again and again and again and relive those experiences. So I would hope that the CAC has a process, the school has a reporting process to the CAC, the parents would know that resource.
Well, I can assure you that the parents don't know that resource. We had to figure this out the hard way. And today, if this incident happened today, I don't think we could tell someone where to turn. As far as the CAC forcing a sheriff's department to show up and be a part of the interview, I don't think that's, I don't think that's kind of, they can't delegate or require them to be there. They still did conduct the interview because I think they understood the time frame with a 3.5-year-old. But as far as having the right people in the room or requiring the right people in the room to be there, it didn't happen. But we did have the forensic interview.
Okay. Well, and again, I think typically they have a series of questions that they ask that would help law enforcement the therapist, like everybody on the team. I don't know if that was recorded or not in your situation.
And again, we didn't get assigned to SVU unit. So an SVU officer is probably trained and understands that, but would a school resource officer understand that as well?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was recorded. I know we received a report. I know that she sat down with I believe a doctor, and the doctor conducted the forensic interview. But as far as that's kind of out of my scope as a parent.
Yeah, I just know the way that we had done it in the north at the Child Advocacy Center in Monroe is that the forensic interviewer went in, the doctor did a physical exam, and then they worked in tandem, recorded everything. So then the law enforcement professionals, whether they're in the room next door asking questions through an earpiece or some other protocol. But I don't know in y'all's situation if it's the same type of CAC.
And it may be different just because the sheer volume that probably goes through the Audrey Hepburn Center in New Orleans. It's only one facility. You guys, we're more population dense there, so could be, they just can't facilitate that much in a very timely manner. I think they did the best that they could do to get us in on time.
I'm sorry what y'all went through, and then look forward to supporting Senator Barrow's bill to hopefully improve these processes. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
I would like to add to this, and this is why I'm going to continue the study resolution, because what we found is the fact that all of the CACs do not operate the same. It's not the same standard. So there's a set standard across the board that by federal law that they have to comply with, but it's not the same across the board. And then what the bill does address is who's responsible. So now DCFS will be responsible and where all reporting cases go to ensure that there has been some resolve. Because in this situation, it was like, is it DCFS or is it law enforcement? Really, truly, before this bill, it should have been law enforcement, but because they were so young, they did not. And so we are going to address that in this bill.
We have a question, Representative Cruz.
Well, I was going to ask if we had a representative from the Aubrey Hepburn Center here to speak to that.
Do we have anyone from there?
I've got a similar situation. A gingerbread house in Shreveport does the same type of forensics interview, so they don't have to do it one time. And it's a great resource. Unfortunately, we had to use it way too much, but I would like to see some standardization or some best practices shared. So we'll get to that. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you, sir.
We have a question. My pen isn't working today. Representative Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Acting Vice Chair, or Madam Acting Chair, I'm sorry. I'm just curious, is there some companion bill that addresses the age issue? Because I guess my concern is if we close the loopholes, we identify who's going to be the lead agency to take responsibility and accountability or to move things forward, and it moves forward through the process and it gets, law enforcement gets involved, but then it gets to a prosecutor and the prosecutor says, well, this is a 10-year-old, what can we do? So is there any criminal aspect to this? Or I guess that may be a question for Senator Barrow, because it seems like we may end up at a point to where they say, well, I guess my concern or my frustration is it sounds like they use age as a reason to not move forward with whatever consequences or accountability.
So I will say that this bill is going to address it in that there's going to be follow-up and we're going to ensure that there's action taken. However, my bigger concern was what happened to the actual perpetrator. Because in order for a child to actually do that type of act, it concerns me in terms of what's happening to that child.
Right.
Because that is not normal. That is not a normal action for a child that age to be doing to another child.
Right. And we need to teach them before they get older
That's
and
right.
think that it's normal.
So that means what is happening to that child, and I'm very concerned about that. I brought that up a couple of times. The school did not want to notify his parents what had happened. I don't know if they were ever notified. We don't know if they were ever.
not. So if I had continued, it's all in there. So the main thing is I'm not angry at a 3-year-old.
Yeah, he was
Right.
Right? So the child was at school and should have been adequately supervised, in my opinion. So this bill is not to blame a 3-year-old for being a 3-year-old, right? it is to protect all children. So it's not just about my daughter, right? Obviously, our family's been somewhat devastated from what's happened in the fallout, in the aftermath of my child's sexual assault. But the most mind-blowing experience here is it is a learned behavior. So a learned behavior being that if a 3-year-old carries this out on another 3-year-old, typically it's learned behavior as in they're watching it being done in front of them. They're watching pornography, or the obvious is it's being done to them. So I had repeatedly requested that the parents be notified so that child is safe as well. Okay. And they refused.
Okay, I got it.
For weeks. So the family was notified weeks later when they were pulled out of carpool picking up their child by JPSO when they finally decided to get involved.
Okay, thank you, Senator Barrow. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Representative Cruz.
Are we going to have DCFS at the table at any time during this?
I think so.
Okay. Thank you all again for bringing this to light. And your testimonies actually highlight some other things tangential to this. But my immediate question right now is, what did DCFS do? Warning the parents is one thing, but maybe the parents were the problem. I don't know. But I want to, at some point, find out what the actions of DCFS were in regard to this incident.
So, and DCFS, due to their definition and their scope, they only deal with issues inside the home. I'm sure they'll clarify that after this. One of the big points that I do want to make before you guys today, and they posted in their fiscal note, the first one that came out, I believe it's 16% of the total call volume to DCFS is child on child. 16% of the total call volume is child on child. And that's in their fiscal note. And nothing happens. No one checks on those kids. No one checks on the little boy that did it to us. Maybe something's happening at home. We don't know. And if nobody's asking any questions and the police department isn't doing anything and DCFS isn't doing anything, that's something that I think this bill does address, so that at least someone's going to ask and check on both kids, which is obviously very important to us. The other main point that I do want to make, because I know we're short on time here, is there's 254 programs in the state of Louisiana that are unlicensed and unregulated. 254. You do that simple math.
15 kids for 2 classes for 3 and 4-year-olds. That's over 15,000 kids that are in unregulated programs. So if something like this were to happen, so we asked, can the school be cited for lack of supervision that led to this? And the Department of Education stated that since they fall out of regulation, since they aren't required to be licensed because of this loophole that's addressed within the bill, that it's like them going after a thief at a grocery store. There is no jurisdiction for them.
So this bill also addresses that. This will require all programs that service kids under 4 to be required to be licensed and to fall under regulation. So if an incident like what happens to my daughter, to this day, no one's been cited. Nobody's been fired. But after hopefully this bill passes the Senate, there will be some type of accountability, and that schools that have now turned into corporations, if they decide to take risk by putting profits over child safety, there will be some type of meaningful accountability, and somebody can be held responsible. And we don't have to come up here 5 times testifying before all these committees, really trying to get change to protect all the kids in Louisiana, because, we got to do better.
Well, we thank you for being here today, and we truly hate that you had to endure this. As a mother, I can't even fathom that. You have another question, Representative Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Senator Barrow, good morning, and thank you both for being here. Even though I wasn't in the room, I was listening to the testimony, and I know DCFS is going to come to the table. Senator Barrow, you and I have known each other a long time, and this issue of dealing with the welfare of our children has always been at the hallmark of what you do and our collective work together. I know you mentioned that some people are a little uncomfortable with the bill, but hell, we should be just as uncomfortable with the harrowing testimony, the horrific testimony that we just heard from this family. And that's where our uncomfortability should be. And while this bill may not be in a perfect fashion, as you said so adeptly, we're going to have to bite this elephant one bite at a time, because it is a big elephant. And it's a plethora of issues that have been compounded over years. I'm so glad, due to your leadership, Senator Barrow, that Madam Pro Tem, that we have a child ombudsman now. And we have a DCFS secretary that's committed to this work, along with a whole group of advocates. So I don't think anyone made a motion, but at the appropriate time, I'd like to move favorable as amended. I'd like to co-author your bill, and you have my commitment that I'm committed to continuing to work with you, because this issue is just too important not to keep working to get it right. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you so much, Representative Hughes. If I may, just for just a moment, because I want to address a few things that Representative Cruz stated. Y'all have no idea the level of trauma that I personally have just going through this whole entire situation, because there's so many things that happen behind the scenes, and so much that was happening as we were bringing the bill forward. And then when we learned about this aspect of it, that just really kind of compounded it for me. It made it more personal in terms of ensuring that whatever it took to get this across the finish line, we did that. But and so I want to thank you for those comments, because you have no idea. I'm telling you, I would have to tell you on another day. But Representative Cruz, I would like to share with you that the Gingerbread House actually served on the task force, and they have been excellent. And then that is where we found that there's no continuity as it relates to how the CACs operate. And we must add, though, to that, the level of funding that each one of them receive, because it's not the same across the board as well. So then that may actually kind of prohibit them from being able to do what they need to do in the fashion that we would like for them to do it. So that's something I think we need to continue to evaluate. But ensuring the level of continuity is the same, I think, is extremely important. And then going back to the cases as it relates child on child, this is addressed in this bill, that DCFS will be tasked with doing that and ensuring that those cases are investigated. This was horrific on so many fronts. And again, Jason, I think you put it really adequately. We should never be ever comfortable with that, ever. I don't care how much it costs. And initially, we started out with a fiscal note that was out the wazoo. We have been able to work with the department, and I appreciate their commitment to ensuring that we address this. But whatever it costs, we need to make sure that it's done, and we need to make sure that it's done properly. Thank you.
I agree. Representative Hughes, someone has already made a motion. I think we thank you so much for your testimony and being here today. We appreciate you. I think they're wanting to see DCFS at the table. If that's possible.
Thank you, Senator Barrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm going to apologize in advance. I have a town hall scheduled with every foster parent in the state of Louisiana invited. I'm expecting probably 1,000 or more people starting at 10 o'clock, so I've been kind of antsy. This bill is I'm David Matlock. I'm the Secretary of the Louisiana Department of Children and Family Services. This bill is a complicated bill. It's a long bill. It's a very heavy lift. It is a very important bill. I don't know if I'm allowed to. This bill will help save children's lives. It will help prevent child maltreatment. It's complicated in many ways. There is a body of law that deals with children under the age of 10. It's called the Family in Need of Services Law. It generally moves toward law enforcement. There is funding associated with that. Like everything else, it's not enough, and the education and communication around FINS is not adequate, and the coordination. You find hot spots where it's done well. Shreveport, I would stand up for. Our court ran that essentially, the FINS program there, and we coordinated it with regular meetings. Still do monthly, quarterly with law enforcement, FINS personnel, court personnel, probation personnel, education personnel, and all those kind of things. But it's a heavy lift, and we had a specialized court there. Jefferson has a specialized court. We often look to Jefferson Parish back in the day of my work as a judge, juvenile judge, as a flagship. And so, but law enforcement has attrition. We have attrition. This is a very important bill. It is hard for us to do, but we don't do anything but hard at the Department of Children and Family Services. This is another hard thing. No, I don't want to grow government, but there are some parts of government that need to grow, and I'm just sorry. That is the real truth. So when I come hat in hand, hand out, know that it is these parents, their child, and 1,000 others just like them.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We have a question. Representative Cruz.
Dr. Matlock, I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you consulting with them on this. Do you think this bill now covers the issues adequately, or are there
There's
things?
still work to be done. Thank you. That's a great question, Representative Cruz. The job is not done. Your committee will continue to work. We will continue to step forward. It's a huge step in the right direction. I think your ombudsman would agree with me. There's still heavy lifting to be done, not just to execute this bill, but to also address all of the things. I'm not sure this bill fully addresses the circumstances in that particular case. Our job is not done, but it is a huge step in the right direction.
There was a question in particular had to do with, I guess, your jurisdiction, that you deal with incidents in the home. I guess I'm going to argue in this case, something was done at the home to influence the other child to act in this manner. Mm-hmm. And I would think one of the first things that should have been done is to isolate that kid in some way, or check on him or something, and see what's going on in that home or a relative's home or wherever, and find out where the source of that behavior would originate.
I can't speak to the facts in a particular case, but we all know that behavior like this, or behavior of a child along those lines, can run the gamut from a wide range. Children hurt people. Not all hurt people, but that we know those circumstances. The department deals with, and it's tough because we deal with events of maltreatment. Child custody and law enforcement deals with events of maltreatment. Our events of maltreatment must occur by a parent or caretaker. As a judge, I may have defined caretaker differently than others.
Well, I know this bill doesn't specifically address this, but do we need a law that makes you more in the loop when it comes to the results of those events and not just the events themselves?
I would say yes, with associated funding, just to be honest with you. I would say yes. Would I want to not do something in circumstances similar to what we've heard today? No, I don't want to not do something in those circumstances.
In the interim, is there a mechanism or procedure you would suggest when a kid behaves in that manner? Who do we get involved and how do we get involved? I mean, this bill is just relegated to the pre-K type instructional center, but what outside of that?
If you wonder why I share my email, david.matlock@la.gov, and my cell number to just about everybody I can ever share it, is because until I'm satisfied that the levels of communication and training and response have been addressed, I need a safety valve. I need a place, and that's my place right this minute. We're working to address these circumstances. But we still, at the end of the day, if it is not by a caretaker or a parent, we're somewhat limited. And that's not an inappropriate limitation, but we do need both the means and the willingness as a department to investigate these tangential circumstances that may be traceable back. Could I get an entry order from a judge to bust down a door in these circumstances based on something that happened at a school? Probably not. Could I investigate in some manner, and should I? I would say I would like to do that, Representative, regardless of what this bill does going forward. But it would be helpful to have more clarity about that trail of events occurring seemingly are suspicious that could lead back to an event by a caretaker or a parent. And the event by a caretaker or a parent doesn't have to occur in a home. And so it could be as simple as redefining caretaker and what that means, but understand that that is a fiscal note. And just be willing to accept that. If we're going to define coaches and child care centers as caretakers, you have just given an enormous increase in our body of work, a huge increase, and we continue to be asked to make bricks without straw and get our own straw, and our agency is strained to the absolute limits. Our frontline child welfare workers, and to some extent our SNAP workers, are holding our entire agency up on their shoulders, and I need resources for them. And I'm grateful for every dollar that this body, and I recognize my lane. I know what it is. I'm not in a policy position that allocates the resources of this state. Bridges are important, roads are important, teachers are important, law enforcement is important, National Guard is important, emergency preparedness is important, food security is important. That's y'all's job. That's not my job. Do I need another $2.5 million in addition to what I got yesterday? I'm incredibly grateful for what I got yesterday and what what y'all gave me before yesterday. But I need another $2.5 million. I just do, because I've got to have frontline workers to do the work we're doing now. And then if I'm going to go in and investigate abuse by caregivers or 3 or 4 year olds in schools, which I'm going to do.
Well, it
I'm going to
sounds
tell you,
pretty
we're going
clear.
to try to do it, but we ration services, Representative Cruz, every living day, and we have to ration that. I do need that additional money.
Understand that, but it sounds like all this falls in your lane because law enforcement apparently is not going to be able to do something about it just simply because these aren't, people of age, children of age. So
they can. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be argumentative, Representative, but FINS covers this. I'm trying to look forward, not backwards. But in Caddo Parish, you get Clay Walker, you get the team involved up there on this case, they would know like that. This is a FINS matter, Family in Need of Services.
So this is
and they would have been in there investigating, and they would have brought us in at the appropriate time. I'm sorry.
So we have some geographical differences, obviously.
For months.
We absolutely do. And I would say to you that one of the other gaps that we did find that was, in my opinion, let me say it this way, so I'm going to be very careful. Law enforcement was a huge component that there was no level of continuity. The individual who served on our task force seemed to be doing a great job, and I don't want to call out that particular parish, but when we heard other stories that came before us, how it was handled was totally different. So that's why I'm going to continue the task force. I welcome your involvement, your feedback. I would like for you to take a look at it. As a matter of fact, if anybody on this committee would like to take a look at that resolution before I actually drop it, let me know. I'd be more than happy to share it with you, because I want to make sure that as we are moving forward, I know we can't do it all at one time. That would be my goal, but I'm realistic. I know we can't, but we got to start somewhere, and we got to make this a priority. And with the level of technology and the things that children are being introduced to today, I'm telling you, we have no choice. We have to make sure that we have all hands on deck, that everybody is applying their full force ahead to make sure that we are protecting them the best we can.
Well, hey, I appreciate the bill, and I appreciate. I'm saddened that it can only apply to one little area of our lives, but I'm glad for this step. So thank you both.
Thank you for being here today. And did you put in a white card?
I gave a blue card right here, and I'll hand it to whoever.
Very good. It should be a white card. I'm sorry.
I'm going to come fill out whatever
You're going to get me.
Madam Acting Chairman.
You're going to get me in trouble.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Representative Cruz had a lot to say. There's different disparities in our rural areas. There's such a need to be able to report, and it's not my personality to hold back, so I'm not going to, but there's a lot of those children that fall in the cracks due to our local governing bodies and our local police departments that are either uneducated about what they're doing or what's about being reported, or they turn a blind eye. So we have to do better, definitely. And I deal with disability children, and the eye is turned all the time on that. And I fight neglect and abuse with our locals, and sometimes they don't show up. Some of our police departments just don't show up. And so, or they don't understand what their role is. So thank you for the bill. We do have one more person that wanted to testify, Tom Costanza, or did he already testify? Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Tom Costanza with the Louisiana Conference of Catholic Bishops. We certainly support the bill in totality. We just had a couple of clarifying questions relative to our Catholic schools are pre-approved under Bessie right now and Cognia. And so we need to look at, Cindy told me it's Bulletin 137 is the new bulletin we'd be following under the DOE. So it's just those kind of questions. And, we do a lot of fingerprinting. We do a lot of background checks. We do a lot of safe environment. So it's just to say that, we support the bill. We just want to get a few clarifying things as the bill moves forward. That was it.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. We also have Cindy Bishop, which is always in support of our children. Thank you. So the board is clear. We have no more questions. And we have a motion by, unless you want to close on your bill, Senator Barrow. Thank you for this.
I will make it very quick. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to really, truly listen to the aspects of this bill. For me, it is personal. It is very emotional. And I have tried to restrain a lot. Hearing the testimony of that family and feeling that they had no recourse really saddened me. I'm glad that we were kind of going through this process and we were able to give them a voice, and then not only give them a voice, but then bring change as a result of their voice. And so I just want to say I appreciate all of you listening, and I look forward to us continuing to do this heavy lifting to make sure that our children are protected.
And we are thankful for you. And we have no questions. Representative Fisher asked to be moved favorably with amendments, and I see no objection. Bill is approved. Thank you. God bless all your endeavors.
Thank you.